Okay, so who started this podcast? Who was the main person?
Ooh, that's a good one. So technically, I think that credit would go to Manoj.
Well, yeah, the
It's not technically,
podcast
it's definitely.
it's okay. Well, and if for a quick backstory, yeah, these two are avid readers. I'm not as much, but I'm best friends with them. And they were like, we should. Was it like post COVID a little bit? I guess we were always going to be in COVID for this time. But anyway, we were going to get together and just talk about books. And then I had just started listening to more and more podcasts as we decided to get together on Zoom and talk about books. And I was like, hey, why don't we just record this and post it on our MSC page? I think other people enjoy it, and yeah, that's how it took off. So yeah, that was probably me.
Okay, so first question would be to you then, man. That it's a speaking from experience, it's very difficult to be an active duty member and start a platform in which you're sharing thoughts. There was a time where that was like unheard of, right? So we're kind of in new waters now. Um, Now I'll tell you something even more rare. I don't see many officers on podcasts. I gotta give y'all the ultimate shout out for doing that, for taking the helm and leading by example. I really want to thank you guys for doing that. But my question to you is, you know, where did the idea come from? Why were you so passionate about it? You obviously care. You're still doing it to this day. And were there any pushback? Was there any challenges in this whole process, or has it been welcomed with open arms from day one?
So from my experience, I would say, like I mentioned before, the reason we started is because we just wanted to get together and talk about leadership books, especially the ones that were on our core chiefs reading list. And I thought the podcast platform was a really cool platform to get information out there, even if it was actually newsworthy and stuff that was actually uh, making us smarter, or listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Smartless, which is just like celebrities just talking with other celebrities and just shooting to shit more or less. And it's like, okay, this is funny and they're having a good time. But when we talked about the first book that we had talked about, I was like, I'm sure other people would enjoy hearing this. And I think we're three more or less relatable guys that have a lot of MSC friends that would, and we're very friendly guys that people like listening to us too, and just picking our brains. And why don't we just pick each other's brains and let other people listen, because they could get something out of it. And for me, I I absolutely love talking and mentoring and guiding young medical service corps officers as they come in. I absolutely enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things when a new LT comes to the clinic that hasn't either just commissioned from being prior listed or straight off the street, which is what I did. And I love just being real with them. Being like, this is how it is. This is what you should look forward to. This is what you should try to do. Giving my experience, and not to say my experience is the one way, but at least giving them set on the right foot. And not to say I wasn't set on the right foot, but for me, I came in going, what am I doing here? I don't never nobody in my family is military. I'm joining. I got thrown into the medical readiness flight. I didn't know what readiness was. UTC, what does that even stand for? Like, I was so lost. So I wanted to make sure the new people coming in weren't as lost as I was. I want to get them started off on the right foot. And so us talking about leadership styles, our experiences, I really thought would be a cool thing to share, not just with the new people coming in, but with our fellow peers, and even the leaders, 06s, 05s that maybe have forgotten what it's like to be a young CGO, and they're kind of in a new echelon of their career that they have to think of things in different ways, that, and they may have forgotten what it's like. Um, so for that reason, I thought it would be really cool to put this podcast out there and have other people listen. And if nobody else listens, cool. We're just putting it for ourselves. That's awesome. But honestly, I don't think we've had any pushback. We've had just the opposite. Like, our downloads were just skyrocketing from our perspective. And I even had a couple people email us, new people that are not even MSCs yet. They're trying to commission in, and they've heard about our podcast. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, and they were like, we should do an episode on newest sessions. I was like, yeah, that we probably should. That's a great idea. And we've had a lot of support from our MSC leadership as well. We had General Flowers on, and yeah, he's plugged our podcast on many different meetings and platforms, which has been really cool. And not to say that we are kind of a voice for the core office, we kind of wanted to be our own entity and kind of have that, from what I see, as like a ground roots perspective of the MSC and what our experiences are and what leadership styles we use day to day, how we come across and deal with challenges. And I really thought that'd be a really cool thing to share. And if it reached other MSCs, great. But if it reached more people, even better.
Wow. Manoj, you're I love how much you care. Like
I
I
appreciate that.
like if I wanted an officer boss, if I could picture a great medical boss, like that, everything you've described is the attributes I would hope that person carries. You know, it's not just showing up and, okay, what are we doing? Drone. Okay, do that, do this. But like you're adding such a special touch to it. I think you should really lean into that and keep going. We're lucky to have you, man. So thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate that. Thanks, man. I appreciate those words.
Absolutely.
I want to jump in with one add-on to this story. Manoj, do you remember after we made our first Facebook post about the pod, about the email that we got almost immediately afterwards?
No,
And
wait.
you're giving me a look. I'll give you a better prompt. It was, it was in the senior leadership of our core asking us like who we talked to get approval for this. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
That is the worst question you could get. Like there's what do you say to that? Like the question in and of itself is like, you know, not
I'm gonna
making
let
a
you
fun
take that one.
situation.
I maybe I blocked that out of my mind. I don't.
I'll tell you what we said. We went on the conference call. We were like, nobody, we're a private entity. We're kind of doing our own thing. And we're not seeking to be the voice of the organization. We're just people within the organization with a voice. And then they were like, oh, okay, well, sounds like you got a good plan. Go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
And then that was it. And we were off to the running pretty much after that.
Chris, you're next, my friend. Tell me a time that you seriously you failed. You fell flat on your face. And you're like, man, I need to pause. I need to really humble myself and change my approach. So I want to hear a time that you really goofed something up and how you grew from that experience.
And it can't be golf related.
If it was golf related, we'd be here all night. So don't go into that.
I don't even know. Well, clearly he does know. So thank you for prompting that, Manoj. So just one thing. That's it. I'm only allowed one item.
No, this is your show. If you got more than one, let's make it rain problems. Let's go.
I mean, we could be here. Look at these two are in stitches right now laughing. I mean, we could be here all night. Honestly, I could probably tell quite a few stories about my own failures, whether they're personal or professional. I had alluded to my own personal struggles with drinking and alcohol. And I think like, as far as personal goes, that's probably about as big of a failure you can get, is not recognizing that you've allowed yourself to have a problem. And I'll probably just say, and maybe this is, I don't want to steal the unpopular opinions thunder, but I think the military as a whole has a drinking problem. I think it's just so ingrained in our culture and so deeply ingrained in our organizations that we say on one hand, like we want you to get help and we want all of our folks to be healthy, but yet we're not really encouraging that in the way that we approach alcohol and drinking. And so me personally, I was not recognizing that sooner, I think, was my own personal failure. It was affecting my wife. It was affecting my family. It was affecting, obviously, me. It was also affecting my work performance. And I think the term that is usually associated is more like high functioning, right? You probably couldn't see it on the outside, but there was certainly a lot of struggle there behind the scenes. So that's probably one thing.
Real quick on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been through that process myself. So I would love to hear how you turn that around. Was it a moment? Was it a decision? Was it an event? That's the part that I'm very intrigued about.
Yeah. So we could probably do a whole separate show on this, but
You'll come on mine and you'll do a whole one. So don't worry, it's coming.
Well, okay, thanks. So bottom line, it was really, I can't say there was like one, like, moment in time. It was really just a decision. And I had just realized, I was like, this is enough. Like, I just can't do this anymore. I had recognized, and there were other times, I think there were, a few times that it kind of led up to like, oh, I need to stop doing this. But at one point, I really just made the decision, like, this is it. That's enough. I'm done. I'm putting it away. And actually, so I know Manoj was, and Greg was involved as well, with the recovery process. Because I think I had called Manoj. We were just getting ready to go to his bachelor's party, and I'd called him about 30 days before. It was just like, hey, look, I don't want to like make this situation awkward or change anything. I'm not telling, like, I don't have any problem that anybody else drinks. It's fine. I don't really, it's just a personal decision. And he was so supportive of the whole situation. Like, hey, thanks for, being vulnerable with me and telling me that. And, that was like right at the beginning. So it was really just kind of like I need to make this decision. I need to own it. And I need to just start to like verbalize, like, this is my path moving forward. And it was really a decision, like not, I'm going to get better. And then I can go back to maybe just, have the healthy amounts of 2 to 3 a week or whatever they say is the healthy amount now. It's like, no more, never again. And some of that decision is rooted in a book that I had read and listened to, by Alan Carr. Anyways, I won't go too far into that, but that's kind of just where it was. It wasn't really, it was just more of I've had enough kind of moment. And I recognize this. I just don't want to continue doing this. Like, put those days behind me. Yeah.
Follow-up question. How has your life changed since then? Has it been noticeable?
Oh man, phenomenal. Unbelievable. It's just, even if I'll anybody that's willing to ask or listen, I'll tell them, I wish I would have done this years ago. And I wish I would have realized the benefits of not drinking years ago. Just like my mental focus, my energy levels, my social engagement. Like, for me, I've always had anxiety, especially social anxiety, even from as a kid. That's just rooted in trauma, I think. And so alcohol is always the liquid courage, right? So I always felt that it was necessary to do that, to go to social functions, and for me to be like an interesting person, or to be comfortable in social situations and be able to talk to people. And 2 years sober now, I'm doing a podcast, right? And it's like, that's just wild to me. Like, the idea that I would even be doing that 5 years ago is just like absolutely not. Like, it's just crazy. But I don't need it to do these sort of things. And so it's really just been like having that, like, that realization now is really just, it's been pretty awesome. And a lot of my relationships, whether they're personal, professional, or, even in my marriage, have just gotten so much more impactful and meaningful, just over the course of the last 2 years. So it's just been great all around.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm proud of you for that. And you touched on something that really resonates with me, and that is, you're podcasting now, but you probably couldn't have done this back then, right? There's something about drinking or having a dependency on it, especially to be social, that I noticed pauses your growth in so many ways. Like, you're just kind of frozen in time with your self-development and growth. And so once that's removed and you're actually uncomfortable in a few situations, you have to now really navigate certain things. And through that process, you become so much better at knowing yourself, your confidence level, because you've allowed yourself to feel uncomfortable for a little bit. And now you can live this whole lifetime feeling great about yourself. So I'm in the same boat. I absolutely hated myself when I was drinking. I had no. Yes. Okay. Big Greg. We got one for Big Greg. Let's see. But I would love to know your proudest moment as an airman. Have you been an MSC your whole career?
I came in enlisted. I did that for 8 years.
Okay. So I got a two-part question for you then. What was your proudest moment as an enlisted airman? And what was your proudest moment as an MSC?
For Shepherd veterans. But while I was there, and as a student for so long, we had a student council that was there to raise issues of like quality of life things up to leadership, and I've always gravitated towards leadership positions, probably part of what finds me where I am now. And so I was on the student council, and I remember I had a lieutenant who was my like section commander at the time, and she was really good at challenging. Her name is Carrie Massini. She's had gotten out of the Air Force some time ago, but she was really impactful to me because she kept putting me in leadership situations that I was not comfortable with. And so one day she came to me and she said, "Hey, I need you to give a briefing about the student council to the entire squadron." So that's all the instructors, all the students in the squadron. They're having a whole commander's call, which at the time I didn't really conceptualize what those were. But the point was, I'm going to bring you on stage and you're going to talk for 5 minutes about what the student council does and how others can get involved. And I had never done any public speaking of any consequence up to this point.
What did the audience look like? Are we talking a massive amount of people?
It was about 300.
Oh, that's pretty intimidating.
for an airman basic with no anything, no experience other than going to school and taking care of myself. Anyway, I don't know exactly what I said because I was so terrified at the time. I do remember I had a death grip on the podium and my leg was uncontrollably shaking the entire time. So that was my physical and mental state in the moment. But I said words, they came across, and other people told me that I was speaking English and did a good job and met their expectations or exceeded their expectations. And I honestly I blacked out. I don't remember any of it anymore to this day. But what that moment did for me is I have no fear of public speaking anymore. After that, it was just, oh, we need to go talk to some people. I'm in. I would put myself in front of others. I would talk. I would, extemporaneously prepared speeches, whatever the case may be. I would just jump into it after that moment. And so that just was a really profound moment in my life that really changed the trajectory of my career. I don't know that I would have stayed around in the Air Force maybe as long, or definitely would have been so bold as to seek a commission and go that route. And then, fast forward 20 years and here we are. The tens of listeners that we have, plus my mom, listen to me speak, regularly. So that's the first one. You look like you wanted to say something.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I didn't know I was, projecting that so obviously. What came to mind just you describing that, because that what you described is honor guard to me, right? Going through those funerals, being there for people. I just find it fascinating how you and anyone else can take their kryptonite, their weakness, their fear, get through it, and now it's become your superpower. Like, that's what fascinates me, is that something that took 5 minutes gave you a superpower. I think that's a pretty powerful thing we should all, keep in mind as we navigate life's challenges. That was all. So it's more of a statement that I had, but that was all.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I spend a lot of time talking with others and reminding myself about the importance of perspective and mindset, right? And how every situation has a positive that you can pull from it, or something that you can take and make valuable to yourself. And it's really important to my mental health, and I believe to others' mental health, to seek those things out, and put, we have negative feelings, we have negative emotions and thoughts that come into our minds, and that's okay, but we need to move beyond it as quickly as possible. And so thinking about that, turning those scary moments into moments of strength, I think are things that really keep us in a better mental state than the alternative.
Absolutely.
Uh, all right, so I do want to touch on one officer moment. Again, here, just back to my earlier job, and we had talked about this a little bit offline, about my previous job when I was at AFCENT headquarters, and I deployed a lot of people. I was the guy who wrote the task order, and then the commanders back in garrison sent their airmen out. But in some ways, I felt very responsible for why those people were where they went to, and uh, so we've heard a lot of talk about all the things that didn't go well with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And um, I was a part of that, because I got to that job in June of 2021. We withdrew from Afghanistan in August, and pretty much from day one when I got there, my boss came to me and said, "Hey, we're doing this task. We're pulling all these forces out of Afghanistan, and we need to keep them medically safe through this transition as we draw down forces and the situation becomes more dangerous. We have to have a plan to keep every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine that's on the ground medically protected, and have resources there to save their lives if needs be." Right. And I took that very, very seriously, and it was a lot of hard work. And I was comfortably sitting in my cubicle 8,000 miles away from the front there, and there were a lot of great airmen and officers that were doing the things day to day. But it was a really proud moment of mine, just the pieces that I was able to contribute to that event. And then the bombing that happened, and the Marines that died, just wrecked me so hard in the moment, because that was my failure translated somehow into that event. And I don't bear any personal blame, and like I said earlier, I kind of got over it relatively quickly, just in feeling that it was my fault somehow that that happened. But it was just, I think, just an indicator of how seriously I was taking my role in that. And that was obviously a very negative event, but there was so much good that happened. There were so many people doing really amazing work, uh drawing that down. And just one person, because I would like to name drop too, that just one person that was just a fantastic leader in the moment was Colonel Tom Stamp, who was the medical commander at Bagram, and then down to Kabul at the airport, and then one of the last people getting on a jet to come back home. he was, the calm in the storm there. And anyway, so just some amazing people, and I got to be a part of that, and it's probably the highlight of my officer career.
Wow. I mean, that is like some serious real world connection there with that. I think that's a pressure that most people will never experience in their entire lifetime. I mean, that was a historical moment that you had a hand in coordinating. I mean, that is absolutely tremendous. Uh, and Greg, thank you for, running us through like your train of thought. Like you were so invested emotionally that even this horrible attack affected you and impacted you, because that your heart and mind was kind of over there with them throughout your whole journey, helping them, although they weren't even aware of you. You thought about them all the time. So I want to thank you for being able to like run us through, emotionally what that felt like. And Greg, I'm just thankful we have people like you on our team who not only can bear the weight of that responsibility, but also care as a human being. I want someone like you who cares to save my life and has that much thought into it in every decision they make at that level. Like that's the type of person I want making that call. So I just want to thank you for being that person in that moment and sharing that with us. So thank you, Greg.
I'm happy to have done it. I was telling my two senior NCOs that were on my team. I was telling them at the time, right, that what we're doing right now is going to be in a PDG, a couple of years from now, like how we used to read when we were studying for promotion about like the Berlin airlift and some of these other things. There's going to be a paragraph about that stuff, and they're not going to obviously mention any of us by name, but we were a piece of it, and that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I mean, we do a lot of cool stuff, but to be tied to something that impacts the whole globe forever, and to know that you had a hand in doing your best to make that work. I mean, that I can't even imagine, the pride you and your team have of running that. I mean, although some folks may have passed away, and there's no way to not feel like upset, or you start to question your own decisions. You're human. That's going to happen to anyone who's in your shoes. But how many lives did you also save by giving them a safe exit out, by putting a lot of thought in the logistics from how many miles away?
I think it's about 8,000 some.
Around 8,000 miles away. You have to coordinate the logistics of this insanely complex operation. Meanwhile, there's you're surrounded by people who want to end everyone's life. Like, that is unbelievable what you were able to pull off. And I guarantee you actually saved lives with how much you cared and the forethought and attention to detail that you put into that.
Well, thanks, man. Make me feel good.
Absolutely. I mean, even like I've learned that through mental health. They can't ever quantify the lives they've saved. I never thought of it that way. But with mental health, you got this statistic, these many people passed away, these many people, ended it. But there's no way to quantify how many people they've saved. I never thought of it that way. But you have to have faith that it is saving people, right? Like that is worth thinking about. And that's what was coming to my mind when you were telling me how much you cared about every decision you made in that mission.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's hard to prove the absence of a thing.
Definitely.